Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm out at the Ubuntu Kylin website to take a look at Ubuntu Kylin. As you probably already know, Ubuntu 22.04 was just released a couple weeks ago, just recently, as of the time of this video. And as a result, there's a lot of other Ubuntu-based distros that are now updating to get in sync with the new release, and Ubuntu Kylin is one of them. Ubuntu Kylin is something that I've always found to be a really interesting distro. I really like it. Kylin is a fork of Mate, which in itself is a great desktop. And so this is developed a Chinese version. This is a distro that's, I believe, created in China, similar to what Deepin is as a Chinese distro, but of course, there is an English version, and Kylin has a really nice desktop, like I said, Mate-based, and a very unique, beautiful look. So it's something I always like to kind of keep up with, and the newest version here now features the UKUI 3.1 desktop. So that's pretty cool, and so there's a lot of aesthetic improvements and different updates that have been made to the distro, and I just can't wait to get in and see what they are. So I'm at the download page right now, and here on the download page you can see that there's actually two different type of processors that it's available for. The x86 is the one typically you would want to choose, so I'm going to go ahead and download this baby, load it in, and let's check it out. Okay, I'm at the Kylin boot screen right now. Well, actually past the boot screen, but this is our first stop. So here we have our language is defaulting to Chinese, so I just need to scroll up here and find English. And there we go, right there. So I'm going to click that, and now everything's legible. Yay! So we can either try Ubuntu Kylin or install it right here from the desktop. So let's just go right into the install and get right down to business, and then we'll see what this is like. So here we have Chinese again is selected by default. So I'm going to select English US and then hit continue because it automatically detected the keyboard layout. And then here, what apps would you like to install to start with? So let's go with a normal installation. A minimal one will just have a web browser and a few basic utilities, but why not just have everything, right? All the stuff that you would normally get. And then downloading updates while installing Ubuntu Kylin, that's good. And then I'm also going to check this box, install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware and additional media formats. And I would recommend that personally because you're a lot less likely to have issues, especially with Wi-Fi or other networking things like that, with that checked. So I'm going to go with that and hit continue, and then it's going to prepare the drivers and go to the next step. Okay, so here we go. And so what I want to do is just select erase and install. It's asking if I want to install alongside an existing Linux on here, which I don't want to do, so I'm going to hit erase disk and then install now, and then I'm going to hit continue. And you want to remember, don't erase disk unless you're okay with losing everything that's on it. Otherwise, bye-bye data. Okay, so I'm going to hit continue. That's showing my default time zone is New York, and that's close enough. And then I'm going to put a silly name in here, the same one I usually do, and then a password, and then hit continue. And now it's kind of doing its thing, installing. And so here we got the installer, and it's looking beautiful, reminding us that we're using the Linux 5.15 LTS, which is the latest stable kernel. So that's pretty decent. 5.15 has a lot of great updates and should work just fine on newer hardware. And with that, I'm just going to let it do its thing, and when it's done installing, I'll be right back. Okay, it looks like install is complete. Everything seemed to have gone okay. So I'm going to hit install. That didn't take too long, about 5 to 7 minutes, give or take, roughly. So with a restart and a little luck, it all worked. So I'm going to press enter, remove the install medium, and that all should be well. Okay, on the restart here, and there's our beautiful splash screen. Really like that animated splash. That's kind of cool on the boot up there. Very cool, actually. What am I saying, kinda? So we'll let this boot in and see how it looks. So here's our login, looking good. So I'll just sign in. And a nice intro sound there, that's pretty cool. And I'm just gonna jump in here, and we got an update reminder. So I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna just jump over here and find the settings, and then just beef up our display a little bit, our resolution. So I'm gonna go to system, and then here we got a resolution. So I'm gonna select 1920 by 1080, hit save, good with that. There we go. So that looks better, and there's our updater. Wow, beautiful looking look here. Actually, it's very Windows-like, actually. And I just scooted up a bit there to get out of the way of the bar there. And I guess I'll go ahead and hit install now on the software updater and just kind of let that run. That shouldn't take too long since it supposedly ran some updates during the install, I think, according to the one option I checked. And while that's doing its thing, I'm just going to explore a little bit. So here, like I said, it's a very Windows 10-like look to it. And even the folders up here, the yellow and the taskbar, everything has a very Windows-like look. And here we have a Windows-ish kind of menu here too. So that's pretty nice. And quick access bar over here on the right. So I like that. And here we can go by alphabetical order if you like. And we can categorize it by letter, which is cool. And here we got a UK UI settings daemon closed unexpectedly. So I'm not really sure what that is. So let's just kind of hit the details and see what it says. And so I'm just going to log in, just authorize that. And so it looks like it's the settings daemon there. Had some kind of issue, crash. And so then there's kind of the details. And if you like, you can send that out to the team and they can take a look. Most likely this has already been sent out a million times, so I'll probably not do that. And also you can select ignore future problems in the future so you don't get those reports if they bother you. So that's one way to just kind of get rid of them. If you only want it to remember this particular problem, but you want to get problem reports on other items, other issues that could pop up, then you would select remember this in the future and hit don't send. And then that way, I believe that it won't send for this particular problem, but if something else crops up, it should bring up another error report, I believe. So if you want to get rid of error reports altogether, just hit ignore future problems and that'll get rid of it. And then you don't have to hear the error reports or to see those. That's kind of similar to Windows. I remember error reports in Windows as well. So I'm just going to hit don't send and just kind of let that go there. So we shouldn't get that particular error again. But if another one pops up with something else, I did leave the other checkbox unchecked just in case. Because since I'm doing a review here, if there's a bunch of things that are popping up, I'd kind of like to know what they are right off the bat. So that one was related to settings. And if I go into settings again, it probably should work okay. And even the settings here, notice how it has a Windows look to it. If you're a Windows user, this probably will feel kind of familiar to you. So this looks like a really great distro for a Windows user coming over to Linux that maybe still wants to hold on to their familiarity with their old operating system, minus all the bugs and spyware and viruses and everything else. So I do like that. Very cool. And no errors. And so down here on our task menu, here we have our task view. So if I click that, it'll bring up our task view here. And you can see that the software on this is up to date. So it gave us a little update there. And then these are our different workspaces. And we don't have anything open right now except for this little dialog box. But if I had some other things open, like for example, if I open up Peony here, which is our file browser, and maybe something else like this little solitaire game from IOROT. And then I went into this again. Now I can see all my different open tasks. So that's what that is. And so you can actually kind of switch between your different tasks. Also, I think if we're in here, let's see if we can drag something to a workspace. I don't know if you can do that or not, but just for fun, I'm going to just try to drag this. I don't know if I can. Nope, it's not draggable. I was kind of thinking like the Gnome. Oh, maybe it is. I was in the wrong spot. So let me see if I can drag this into the second workspace. And it did, it went. Wow, that's cool. Okay, I was just kind of taking a shot there. I didn't know if that would really work or not. But now we moved our solitaire into the second workspace. So now you can see that we only have this open and this little dialog box, which I'll close. But if we go into our other workspace, and I can get there easily just by hitting, should be Control Alt and then left arrow, and then you're back on the original, on the first one. Yeah, if it was going to do that, but I kind of got that idea from the Gnome. In the Gnome desktop, you can kind of do that and drag it out to the other desktop areas. So that same principle applies here, and I like that. Cool. And then up here, like I said, this is kind of alphabetized now, kind of like Windows 10. So a lot of similarities. And then if we go up and hit all, then this is where it was by default. just have everything here. And if you need quick access, of course, you can just go into the search and type that. And then, I'm not sure what this is, function. So, okay, so that's basically categories. So here you can kind of sort them by categories. Personally, that's what I like. If you're a Windows user coming over from, say, Windows 10, then you might be comfortable with this, the alphabetical order here. And then here, of course, is back to default. And then if you go up here, you can go full screen with your menu. So if you hit that, boom, it just goes full screen. And then you have everything here. And again, you still have the same options. So you can go all, letter, and then you can select your letter here, which is really handy, or by function or category. So if you want to go to image, game, office, suites, and so forth, there you go. And then of course your shortcuts over here to log in and out, to go to your file manager, settings, and power settings, or your shutdown. If you want to shut down, this would actually be log in and out. Actually, that would be your account info, and you can set up your different stuff, like your face. You can change your face here, or put your own custom one here, picture, and then change your password and your account type and so forth, all right here. By default, I'm an admin, but if I wanted to make if I wanted to make someone else a not admin, you can't make yourself a regular user if you're the only user. So they need an admin on there. However, if you had more than one user on this machine, you could definitely have a secondary user and set them up without admin privileges, and that would probably save you a lot of headache if you're an administrator. Cool. So I am really liking this, what I'm seeing here so far. So it starts off here with internet, and so we have our Firefox for default, and Rumina, which is an RDP where you can remote into your desktop or someone else's desktop. Very cool. And I believe this probably supports the remote desktop protocol as well. So if I pop in here, yes, it's RDP by default. I remember back in the day, RDP was kind of a plugin you had to add with Rumina if you installed it separately, but now they probably typically just have it integrated, I'm assuming, because I see that a lot now, just automatically in Rumina. And then you can use the VNC or SSH protocol. And so that's nice if you're a little tech savvy and you want to be able to tie into different machines. Very cool. Then we have Kylin Video, which is nice. A burner software, and nice. Kind of reminds me again of Deepin a little bit. Very cool. And then we have our Thunderbird Mail, burner, Rhythm Box, and under video, installed by default, we were already on video. What am I saying? And then under image, LibreOffice Draw, which is really cool. I like Draw, actually. And document scanner, IOROT software, Mahjong, Minds, and Sudoku. Actually, with LibreOffice Draw, a lot of people don't know this, but you can create PDF files in LibreOffice Draw. Not only that, but you can edit them. So if you have a PDF file and you want to change something in it, you can just load it into LibreOffice Draw, and it's got like some OCR features where you can where it'll make everything editable in there. So if you have a PDF file and you want to change something in it, you can easily do it in LibreOffice Draw. If you want to change the title or whatever, take a picture out, it's really amazing. So I think that's a little known aspect of Draw. Might even do a video on that because it really is fascinating. Very feature rich, and it's really hard to find a good PDF editor for free, especially. And a lot of people have one right under their noses and don't even know it. So there you go. And then under games, of course, we have the Solitaire that I just opened, Mahjong, Minds, which is great. It's kind of like the Windows games. And then here you can set your different grid types, and 8x8 is the default, but you probably remember this if you're a Windows user. You go in here, and I'm gonna probably blow up. I didn't. I'll blow up here though, but I could go here. But I might blow up here, but maybe I can go here. Wahoo! And so yeah, Minds, always a great game, a classic. I'll see if I can blow myself up. If I wanted to, I would never hit it, but I did. So note to self, never walk through a minefield. I'll probably step on something. And so then Office, we got by default LibreOffice Calc, the whole suite actually. Draw again, Impress, which is the equivalent to MS Access, a database app. And then LibreOffice Math, Writer, which is equivalent to Word. And Calc, of course, up here is equivalent to Excel, and really quite nice, actually. And then we have Pluma and Vim, which is a text editor. And then if we scroll down here into System, we have all our different system-related apps, a disk utility, Bluetooth, FCT, IX, which will let you set your keyboard settings. So if you want to have Chinese Pinyin or some other language, you can set your language settings here. And in the case of Chinese, you can use Pinyin and switch it back and forth between Pinyin and English, which is really cool. I like that. Then we have our Kylin Software Center and our Mate terminal. And since we're at the Mate terminal, let's open that up and let's put in HTOP. I don't think that's installed by default. So I'm just going to do a sudo apt install HTOP and let that install. And then once we got HTOP in there, I'm going to run it. And here, nice, it's only using 981 megs of resources. That seems pretty reasonable to me. So pretty good out of 6 gigs of RAM that's allocated to this. Very cool. So I'll jump out of there, and as you can see by default, it's in a light theme here. And since we had, and then others, we got our updater, startup disk creator. That's nice that we can create a disk right there on board. China indicator, weather. Oh, that's kind of cool. Guess you can see what the weather is like in Beijing. And then Grandpa Archiver. That's one of my favorite archivers. That's really nice to work with. Real easy to use. I like that too. So let's jump back to system and take a look at our software center. So if I open up the software center, wow, nice animations there. So it's saying that the first time you've entered the system or the software source is abnormal. So in our case, it's the first time. So I'm going to hit update and let it do its thing and then sign in there. I really like the animation there. That's very cool. That must be part of the UK UI theme here in Kylin, so I like it. And so here we have our software center looking good. And it looks like it's in Chinese by default. That's kind of interesting. Kind of wasn't expecting that since our language settings are English. So that might be something they might want to fix. However, let's over here. However, I think it'll still work fine if you just go up here and type something in. So like if I was looking for Inkscape, we should be able to just locate it right off the bat, and there it is. So if I hit that, then here we got our Inkscape. But again, the description's all in Chinese. Ouch. If you're Chinese, though, you're in luck. And I'm going down here to my taskbar in the lower right, and I see that the keyboard is set up for English. And if I hit configure, there's nothing in there for Pinyin. So I think we're good there. And if I go into settings, and then I'm guessing it might be under area, and it's showing US, so we're good with the language. Does have this in there as the major language. So yeah, I guess I would rule that out, at least for now. So apparently that's kind of the hitch there for this. However, easy workaround. You can always just go in and install a different software package manager, like for example, Gnome software. Otherwise, you could probably just kind of learn what these categories are. But if it was me personally, I would probably just use the terminal and use apt install. But if you're really, really a GUI person, I think what you might be able to do is jump in the Mate terminal, and you might be able to install Gnome software. So like if we went in here and did a sudo apt install, and I think it might be Gnome-software, and there it is, cool. So I'll just hit Y for yes to install it, and then the install is pretty fast. Not a big deal there. And that'll give us an alternative GUI package manager that we can use to install stuff. So that way you have an alternative. So now if we go in here and we type in software in our search, we got software. So this is our Gnome software package manager. And if we open this up, it should all be in English. So I'm going to hit browse software. And the first time it runs, it's going to download the catalog and all the metadata to make it load in all the graphics and everything. So that just takes a minute or so to get all set up, but that's just a first time thing. After that, it'll come right in. So here we got everything in English. So this is probably what I would do if I really wanted to have a GUI alternative to using the console. And then that way you got something in your own language. And I suspect that in time, the Kylin Software Center will probably update and be in English in the categories, and probably some future update of Kylin Ubuntu for the English, and that'll probably take care of that. However, for now, I would just use this if you're not a console person. And then here we have our software repo settings, and this also integrates really nice with Snap and Flatpak and so forth. So that's another thing. The Kylin Software Center probably does too, being that it's an Ubuntu, and it's probably some fork of Gnome software anyway. So both of these should work just fine with Ubuntu Kylin. And then we have our different settings in here, which you've probably seen in some of my other videos that were GNOME based. But by default, for the Ubuntu software, this is really probably what you want to see. And so the canonical supported free community maintained proprietary drivers and software restricted by copyright. So everything, I would just stay with the defaults there, and it all looks good. So now if you were going to look for something like Inkscape, for example, it would pop right up, or you can go down here and see the different categories. So we got codecs, fonts, hardware drivers, input sources, and right now I think we're in the video stuff. These are editor's choice here that's showing up by default, but then we got work, play, socialize. So you got these different categories that are kind of loosely related. For example, if I was going to look for Blender, probably be under create. And then again, being the first run, it's going to take a minute to kind of populate all the metadata and images and so forth there. But instead of waiting for that, typically I would just recommend going into the search and then just doing a search for what you're looking for. If you already know what you want, for example, like Inkscape, if you want to install that, then here you go, and just hit that. And now our description and everything's in English, and our picture and everything, you're kind of all set there. And by default, it's showing the Snap versions. Here you got your Snap from Ubuntu, and if you select this, then you got other choices here. So you also have, well, actually all Snaps, but except for up here, you got Ubuntu Deb. So this would be straight out of the repository. So if you wanted the DEB file rather than the Snap, then you can do that. And it looks like that's also the latest, the 1.1.2, so that's great. So that's one thing to kind of remember when you're doing a download, is to look up here under the source and make sure it's the type that you want, whether it's a Snap or a DEB file, or if you like Flatpaks and you decide you want to install Flatpaks, then that would also be an option up here. And the best way to do that is to go out to FlatHub and then just follow the Flatpak install link there that they have on every product that you look at. And so under Ubuntu, it would take you through the simple steps to do that, and then you're good to go. And then you got Flatpak integrated in here. So there's a plugin that's easily available for that, right? For the GNOME Software Center. Nice. So that's that for software. So let's take a look at the settings real quick. So if I go in here to settings, I'm going to slide this over and then kind of slide that out of the way and then open up my Peony and then jump back here. And so here, like I was saying before, a very Windows look here. And we were originally in System. So here we got display settings here. You can change your resolution. Then you got touchscreens, default app. And so if you want to change your default web browser, maybe you installed Chromium or something like that, you can change it here. And same with your email client and image viewer and all those other things. And so for example, the Kylin video, if I had, you can make MPV player your default instead. Of course, Kylin I think is fine here. So I would probably stick with that. And if you had VLC, then you could change it there. And then these are things that boot up by default. And if you didn't want something to boot up, like let's say China weather, you could turn that off. And I don't even know where that is. It shows that it's running, but I am not seeing it here. When I look down here, maybe it's this guy. No, that's our network settings. So here's our notification center, keyboard settings, and then our calendar. Nice. Wow. That's a nice calendar, actually. I do like that. But I don't see the Kylin weather, so I'm not really quite sure where that kind of falls into play. But I think that's a Chinese weather app anyway, so not really probably relevant to this part of the world that I'm in. And then under settings, we got our device settings for printers, scanners, mouse, keyboard. So if you need to change to a left-hand mouse, this is the place you would do it. And then your pointer settings, cursor settings, and all that good stuff. And then we have personalized. Well, before that, let's look at keyboard. And so here, you can change your keyboard setting if you need to. Typically, I would just keep it all right where it is, unless you kind of know what you're doing with the keyboard and you have some special needs there. And then these are our shortcut settings. So if you want to change your keyboard shortcuts, this would be the place to do it. And of course, you can add your own by putting a custom shortcut. So maybe you didn't like the terminal opening with Control-Alt-T or with Super T. So if you wanted to change it to something else, like an F key or something, this would be the place to do it. And I would probably do that with a custom shortcut. Then here you would put the executable here. In this case, it would be for your Mate terminal. And an easy way to do that would be to go to Open and then just kind of find it in this list if you don't already know what it is. And here we go. We got Mate terminal desktop. So you would just set that, hit Open, and then you would just call it whatever you want, like console. And then here you would select your key and then just hit a key combination. Like, for example, if I wanted it to be F12, I could just press F12, and it didn't like that. So apparently it needs a combination. So now let's just do Alt-T as the default, I think, and Enter. So it's pretty standard. But if I wanted to change it to something like Control-T, then that's conflicting with something else. Maybe Control-9. That's a crazy shortcut, but you get the picture. So you can make your own shortcut for whatever you want. If you have some other app installed like Inkscape, I could do something in here like Control-Alt-I or some crazy thing like that and just launch it. So that's how those work. Here we got our backgrounds. Oh, I like the animation actually when you hover over these. That's pretty nice how it kind of tweaks a resize there a little bit. Very nice. So if I jump out of here we got a nice city scene there. Very cool. I remember seeing that before. Oh, and I just noticed we got thumbnail previews too. Very nice. That looks great. So it looks like a nice little selection of wallpaper here. Some beautiful backgrounds. And this one especially looks good. Wow, I like that. Very futuristic cityscape. That looks like Shanghai to me. Kind of looks familiar there. So cool. I think I'll go with that. And then under our themes, by default, I think we're in a light theme. So if you want to switch over to a dark theme, just hit this right here. And boom, everything goes dark. Very nice. Actually, I like that. I think that looks great. It even looks good with the background there. Kind of a night scene with a dark theme. I like that. And then here you can change your cursor type. So right now we're using dark sense, which is kind of this arrowhead shape kind of look. And then blue crystal is the same except in a bluish color. And then you got a more standard kind of mouse with the DMZ black, or you can make it white. And that's kind of Windows-ish like, older Windows. And then these are more for handheld, red glass, white glass. So a lot of different looks here. And personally, I kind of like the DMZ black myself. So that's for that. And then if you don't want the performance mode on here right now, we got transparencies up here and shadows, and it looks just really kind of nice and fancy. But you can turn that off actually by selecting that, and then that'll kind of turn off the fancy stuff and no more transparencies. So if you have an older machine that might be struggling for some reason, maybe that'll help a little. And then we got our screen lock. So this is what shows up if our screen locks, which is kind of cool. And it looks like a little bit different set of wallpapers. So, and maybe not, but if you want a different wallpaper on a screen lock, you can do that if you're a screen locker fan. And then our screensaver settings, looks like it's set up for 5 minutes by default. But if you don't like screensavers, you can just go over here and select never, and it'll never do it. Otherwise, you can do anything between 5 minutes and never. And then under customize, I guess you can kind of put in your own backgrounds there if you want a custom screensaver. So that's kind of cool too. I like it. And then your desktop settings. So this is what's on your desktop that's showing up by default. They got the computer menu and the setting menu by default. And then file system and trash menu if you want to. Looks like it's already there, unless they're referring to something else there. Well, since it's saying menu, apparently there's a menu if you click on the trash can. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're referring to there as far as file system menu and trash menu, but maybe if I turn it on and open the trash, there's some kind of menu, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, they got me on that one. Opening it up again, still not seeing a difference, so I don't really know what that's referring to. But if you ever want to turn them on someday just for fun, or if you just like clicking buttons, this is a great place to do it. And so now if we back up and look at our network settings, these are our network, which is a wired connection here. And then these are our account settings where we were a little bit earlier, where you can change your password, your account type, group that you're in. Of course, I probably wouldn't mess with any of that. But if you want to change your user face, this is the place you can do it. So you can make yourself look like a zebra, or use your own picture by using select face from local. Of course, I don't have anything installed, any pictures on here, so that wouldn't work. But that's where you would put your own face. And then you got date time settings. And I like the default here actually, 1547, and then our date down there. And of course, when we click on it, we got the browser. That looks nice. I mean, the calendar, nice. So you can change your time zone here. if you don't think it's correct. Default time server is usually a good choice, and you can even add other time zones if you want to keep track of maybe your great uncle Wang in Beijing. So you can add in a Beijing time zone here and then kind of keep track of both. And then our area, which is our region. Here it's showing our current region is the US, and this is where we were before, of course, with Monday being the start of the week. But you can change that if you want. You can even change your calendar. That's kind of cool. Well, I guess I don't see any other options, but there must be a drop down there for some reason. Maybe there's a plugin you can download to use the Mayan calendar. That would be fun. Fool all your friends. And then our date settings. So here you can change your format, I'm assuming, if you want a different kind of format. And then 24-hour time. If you like 12-hour better, you can go here and change that. And then, of course, your main language, which is where we were before, and you can add more languages if you need to. So nice to have those options. And then these are our update settings, and it's got some backup and restore settings here if you want to back things up. So that's kind of cool that they got a utility like that where you can kind of do a backup there manually from your settings. That's cool. And then your message settings. So these are your notification settings, and they're turned on for Peony and your other ones here. So that's kind of cool. So it's kind of cool. These are different apps that will send you notifications if there's, some kind of thing going on there. And then search settings and system summary. So as you can see, by default, we're running the Linux 5.15 LTS generic kernel on an Intel Core with 6 gigs. And featuring the UK UI desktop and me as the user. And so this is Kylin Linux Desktop version 10. Nice. And UK UI is actually the name of the desktop environment itself. And so if we go back to home, these are kind of the categories that we just explored, but here in the home setting, they kind of have them laid out in more of an icon format to make it a little easier to relate to. But once you click on any of these, you kind of end back up in the environment where we were at, and then over here on your left-hand menu, that all kind of corresponds to what we were looking at back here in your home menu here. So that is the settings. And there's our wallpaper. The wallpaper looks awesome. Wow, I love it. And let's take a quicker look at Peony here real quick. That's our default file manager. So overall, a really beautiful look here. Peony is a pretty nice file manager. I've used it a few times, not a lot. But here you can change your views and so forth here in your icon view. But overall, a very nice look, very easy to use, and quite functional. And there's even a screenshot folder there for your screenshot utility that's built in. And then if you go up to this little guy here and select options, then here we got places where you can select different things like show your hidden files and so forth. Or if you want to turn off thumbnailing, you can do that. Personally, I like thumbnailing on, so I probably wouldn't change any of that stuff. So those are some basic option types. And then under your sort type, you can sort by file name or by date, type, size, ascending and descending. So another thing that's kind of nice, so even if you're in an icon mode, you can still sort by date, which is kind of cool. Makes it easy. And here you can preview files, which is nice, except I don't have anything with a picture on it or any PDFs or anything. So I really can't show you much. And you just click it again to turn it off. So Peony, yes, very nice. A pretty cool file manager, and overall a nice look. So I'm thinking I covered everything here. And so here are my thoughts. This is what I think about Kylin. This is a beautiful desktop, really gorgeous. And if you're coming over from Windows, this could be almost perfect. Of course, the software manager, which is, in case you're a Windows user, is kind of equivalent to an app store like you'd find on your phone. So it's kind of an easy way to find software. You don't have to go out like you do on Windows and, download it off a website generally. Although you can, but you'd be downloading DEB files rather than an EXE. However, the only thing I gotta say though is the Kylin Software Center is still in Chinese. So that is kind of a problem for English people. So that, I would take that as a little bit of a strike. That I think needs a little bit of work to kind of get that language straightened out, which I'm thinking will probably show up in an update. And at some point, if you're watching this video a little farther in the future, it's probably already been resolved. So that's something you want to keep in mind. But that would be one thing. So the solution I showed you earlier, installing Gnome software, is probably the easiest way around that. And then just use the Gnome software instead of the Kylin. for now, and that'll fix things for you. Otherwise, if you like the console, that's the way I like to go and install things. It's just quicker. You open up the console and do a sudo app install and then the name of your software, and then boom, it's done. So that's just kind of me. So you got lots of ways you can install software. Very sharp looking. This is something that is very polished and beautiful. And like I was saying probably several times, if you're coming over from Windows, you'll be really comfortable with the whole look and feel of this. If you're setting this up for somebody else, like a Windows user, somebody that might not be real computer savvy, they'll be really comfortable with this because it does all the functions they would probably need. And if they're a power user, then you probably wouldn't be setting them up anyway. So very good. And like I was saying, the overall look and feel is really great. If you're like somebody that really likes to tweak your theming and all that, then it may not be a great fit because you really can't get in there into the settings and change your icons. The icon set you see is what you get. So if you wanted some other kind of icon set, there's no way that I know of that you can just easily change that. So this is kind of what you would have by the default. You can change your theme from light to dark, but you can't really do anything else. You can't add like a different theme like you would in KDE or XFCE, Gnome, to give it a completely different look. And I don't believe that you can change your taskbar down here either, or your panel. If I remember right, there's no panel preferences for your bar, but you can check and uncheck things. Like here you got show desktop, so if you want to add that, you can check that. And then it shows up right here down on the very right corner, just like in Windows, and it even looks like the Windows show desktop. So if I have something open and I hit show desktop, then it'll automatically minimize everything on the screen that's open. So that's kind of the extent of what you can add and remove here. And then you can change your panel size. So if you go to medium here, it'll increase and make it bigger, or you could make it massive by selecting large. But you do have some degree of adjustability to it. And then same here with the position. If you like it up on top, you can hit it there and it'll go up on top, and that's kind of cool. Or you can right click and put it over on the left hand side, and now you got it right there. And a lot of people like it having it right there on the left because they were working, and then you don't have to travel as far with your mouse to access it. So a lot of people like it over there. And then you can also put it on your right hand side like this. You know, I've heard people say, I don't have any idea why would you want it have on your right hand side, which I can understand that. But if you're in a different country where maybe you read and write from right to left, we go from left to right. So when we're working, we're typically over here on the left side of the screen, so naturally the bar being on the left would be easier to reach. But if you're working from right to left and you're in a Word program or something and you're using right to left, then I would assume that probably the bar being on the right hand side would be the area where you would have quick access to. And so I think in some countries it would make more sense to have it on the right hand side, especially if you were using a language such as Arabic or something else that, you know, is right to left leaning instead of the other way around. So that's kind of my logic on that. And so I'm just going to stick the position back to the bottom where it was by default. So that was the other thing. Or you can hide your panel altogether. I'm almost afraid to do that because if I hide it, I might not be able to get it back. No, I'm pretty sure it'll come back if I put my arrow there. But if you hit hide panel, then it disappears, and then you can just bring your mouse to the bottom. And it did come back. Thank you. So that's nice. And then just click it again to uncheck that. And then you can also lock the panel if you don't want anybody messing with it. Very cool. And then you have your about box down here. And that brings us up where we were before to see the specs. Very nice. So anyways, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there with my thoughts, but I just kind of wanted to show you that because I don't think I showed you that earlier. So there you go. But as far as, you know, adjusting anything else with the bar there, like adding items or removing items and sliding them around or whatever, you can change your icons around though. Like if I have something else open here, like say the Kylin video. Now down here we have our Kylin video and we have Peony here, and I can move Peony over here to this part, and just kind of switch them around. So you can move things around on there, but something like the menu, I don't think I could like grab the menu and drag it down somewhere. As far as I know, there's not really any way to do that probably. So a few things you got to give up in configurability, and with your theming, it's not really customizable, at least not in some easy sense. If you're good at getting into config files and, you know, getting down and dirty into the deep stuff, then you can probably do it, but probably not the most fun way to rice up your system if you wanted to change it. So accept Kylin the way it is, just like you would Windows. Like I was saying, for a Windows user, it's perfect. For somebody that's not comfortable with a new look, but maybe the viruses and everything else are driving them nuts, and you can offer them a different alternative to Windows. Some people probably wouldn't even know they're not in Windows. So really nice. And overall, it looks pretty stable. You got the technology of Ubuntu behind it. So that is a big deal, of course. And of course, if you are setting this up for somebody that might be Chinese, it's already there in place. So that gives you a head start right off the bat. But it looks very language centric here. So supports tons of different languages. It's optimized for a laptop, so if you put it on a laptop, it's got your battery charge settings and everything all down there that you need and ready to go. So I think for a lot of people, Kylin would be an amazing distro. And if you like something simple that you don't want to just mess with, you just want to put something on a PC or a laptop or something else and just have it work and just get things done, this could be a perfect choice for you. So there you go. I hope that helped. And if it did, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And by going like this and hitting it, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.